Do you consider yourself a high achiever? Smart, driven, highly successful? I am so excited to have you. My name is Julia Arndt and I'm the host of the Stress Podcast. I will help you develop your stress resilience the same way you've developed your workplace superpowers. Learn peak performance tools to thrive at work and in your personal life. Let's get started.
New year, new you. Is that a myth? Do you ever wonder if you're ever gonna be able to break your bad habits? And if you are able to, what is the best way to get started? In today's video, I want to talk with you about why it is so hard to break your old habits and how you can rewire your brain in order to successfully build new habits this year. So I would say, let's get started. Hi, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Julia Arndt and I'm a peak performance coach and stress management trainer, and I'm very excited to welcome you today to a little bit of a different setting. I was supposed to go into my recording office studio this morning, but there's a big snowstorm raging outside, so I had no other choice than to get comfortable here, which is obviously not a bad place to be, and to record a couple of videos for you today for the channel. In today's video, I want to obviously talk with you about how to break bad habits. I know that at some point or the other, you and I and many others have asked ourselves this big question. I know that it is very difficult sometimes to break old habits and build new ones. So I wanted to sit down, especially at the beginning of the new year where we're setting all of these beautiful resolutions and goals, and talk with you a little bit about why is it actually so freaking hard to break these old habits. There's a good reason for that. So I would say let's talk a little bit about that first of all. Okay, so at this point, I actually wanted to put my glasses on in order to talk with you a little bit about the neuroscience of stress.
Yes, science!
So let's talk about the evolution. And over the course of time, your brain was designed that way in order to conserve energy. What does that exactly mean? So our brain has tried to find as many automated processes as possible in order to make sure that our energy expenditure is limited, right? And so the more things we can automate, the more we can conserve energy and focus our attention on things that are actually important. So when we are talking about the wiring process of your brain, obviously there's tons of different wires that have been created in your brain in order to do all of the different things that you're doing throughout the day. Think about just driving your car alone, right? This is a perfect example because at the beginning, when you started to drive a car, it was probably very, very difficult for you to do all of the different things and to think about all of the different things because it wasn't something that you were used to doing. But over time, now you're getting into the car and you might sometimes even wonder, how do they even get from point A to point B? Because everything is so automated. Your brain is almost kind of taking over. And so those processes are very, very important for you, especially as a peak performer, in order to automate different processes over the day that can just kind of run in the background and then obviously pay attention to the things that are important for you. So if we are talking about breaking those old habits, we obviously have to take a look at what are different cues. So what is the cue of maybe taking a specific action, and then what is the behavior? Because here's the next thing. Your brain actually doesn't know the difference between what is good for you and what is bad for you. So, for example, if you are getting up in the morning and the first thing you do every single morning is to check your phone, your brain doesn't know if that's a good behavior or a bad behavior. Your brain just knows that because you're waking up, you're grabbing your phone. That is just what you've always been doing. So if you are starting to try to break that habit, then it might be very difficult for you because your brain might think and might send you that signal of what is actually going on right now and why are we doing something different to what I'm used to, because it's taking me more energy, it's taking me more mental power in order to actually execute that process. And so that is the first important thing actually that you need to know when you're trying to break your old habit is, first of all, As I already mentioned, there are a ton of different automated processes that are running in the background in order to just make you operate every single day, and that if you want to break these habits, if you want to break these behaviors that you have been doing over and over and over and over again, then you need to expend at the beginning a little bit more energy, especially mental energy, mental power, mental toughness, right? We always talk about mental toughness and mindset because it's a real thing, and you need to start making that conscious decision in order to start shifting your behaviors to maybe more powerful, better, healthier habits and behaviors, okay? So that is the first thing that is really important to know. So as you can see, it's not really your fault. It's your brain that is taking one action after another without you even really thinking about it. And so in order to build new habits, you have to overcome that deeply ingrained desire of your brain to do the things the way you have been used to. And as I already mentioned, that obviously takes a little bit more time and it takes a little bit more mental power in order to do so, but it is not impossible. So I want to take you now step by step through the process of how to rewire your brain and build these new habits. So step number one, in order to rewire your brain, is to start to become aware of the cues that are connected to a behavior. Because once you start to create this awareness, you can start to think about how can I actually replace this old cue with a new behavior. Let me give you an example. So as you can see in the table here, there are different cues that are connected to different behaviors. For example, you're waking up in the morning, that is your cue, and the behavior that you have been doing over and over and over and over again is to grab your phone and to check your phone. Another example might be that a cue is that you are getting out of bed and the first thing, the first behavior, the first action that you're taking is to switch on your TV. And finally, another example here is that you're making coffee, and while you're making coffee, you are used to always checking your emails, okay? So you can see there's a cue that is connected to a behavior. And so in order now to break that, you need to replace that behavior, that old behavior, with a new behavior. And that leads me to step number two. In step number two, you basically want to obviously replace that old behavior, the current behavior, with a new one. So you need to start to set smart goals. You need to be really aware of what am I currently doing and what can I do in order to break that old habit? What can I do to break that old behavior? And as we all know, sometimes we set the best intentions and we think we can just completely replace this old behavior with a new behavior from one day to another. Like, for example, you might have set the goal at the beginning of this year to work out every single day, every week, right? And this might not be realistic, and that is why we are talking about SMART goals. SMART stands for specific, measurable, realistic, actionable, and timely. And so you want to make sure that the goal that you're setting for yourself fulfills all of these different points. Because, like I said, for example, if you are planning to go from 0 gym to 7 days gym every single week, that's probably not very realistic. So think about a goal that you have. So let's say, for example, your goal is to not check your phone anymore, but to wake up in the morning and be more intentional. So for example, you want to spend the first few minutes of the morning by being grateful for the things that you have in your life. So that is a new behavior, right? You can see this here on the table as well. This is a new behavior. And now you can think about, okay, what is then really realistic at the beginning for me to do? You need to make sure that you're starting with really tiny, small steps in order to just kind of build that momentum. That is really, really important when you are creating new goals and when you're creating new habits, is that you need to build that momentum, okay? So what I want you to do now is I want you to actually take a piece of paper and a pen and just write down and build this really simple list of things where you're writing down your current cue and the current behavior that is attached to that. And then I want you to think about what is actually a new behavior that I'm trying to build and how can you create a SMART goal around that behavior. So like, for example, next week 2 times a week, I would like to wake up in the morning and not check my phone, but to just spend a few minutes to think about the things that I'm grateful for, okay? So take a few minutes and I'll see you back here in a second. Okay, and you already kind of fulfilled step number 3, because step number 3 is taking action. Taking action is so important. Oftentimes we are waiting for some motivation to kick in and then we think we're taking action, but taking action actually comes before the motivation kicks in, okay? So this is something super important to know as well. So don't wait to think, oh, today I just don't feel like it. This might even be your brain talking to you, because your brain is absolutely 100% starting to get uncomfortable when you're starting to move from this very automated, cozy habit to a new habit, okay? So taking action is super important in this process, and I hope that you obviously just spent a few minutes to think about those cues, behaviors, and what you want to do differently in the future. Step number 4 then is to be patient and trust the process. This is an important reminder because it is not easy to rewire your brain, but it's not impossible, and it takes time. So now you might wonder, how long does it take, okay? Or you might even wonder, well, sometimes I do this for a week or 2 weeks, I have a really good streak, maybe I even do it for a month, but then something is happening in my life and then I'm just reverting back to this old behavior. Let's talk about this for a second. Why does this happen? Well, it happens because that street, that highway in your brain, so that wiring part of the brain that's, for example, saying go to the gym, is still not as deeply ingrained in your brain as sitting in front of the TV and watching Netflix, okay? So it is very often the case that we're reverting back to these old habits very quickly when something is happening in our lives, when we're feeling super stressed, when we are experiencing a traumatic event, when we are feeling lazy and bored, or whatever it is, okay? And so again, you need to be aware of that, and it is really important to know that it's not just going to take 30 days to build a new habit and then you're good and golden, but you actually have to repeat that over and over again to build that automated behavior. Of course, 30 days is a good start, but when you're looking at data and science and information, it's not happening anymore. And you, as I said, you might have had this experience in the past, okay? So be patient with yourself, and when you are setting these goals and when you build these new behaviors, you need to also trust that what you're doing is actually building a new lifestyle for yourself. So don't just think, I want to do this and I'm going to, kind of push it through. It really needs to be intrinsic motivation and understanding that what you're doing is building a new lifestyle and a new life for yourself. And if you want to do that, you obviously need to stick to the new behaviors that you're creating for yourself. And that brings me to the final and 5th step in our video today, which is to think about finding some kind of accountability buddy. That could be journaling. As you know, I love journaling and I do it all the time, and I check in on my goals all the time because it is really important to remind yourself sometimes of what kind of things you set for yourself. And even more powerful is to have an accountability buddy that is helping you to achieve your goals and that is helping you to stay accountable and true to yourself. And that can be anyone, from a friend, a colleague, a manager, right, a leader. It could be a mentor, it could be a coach, it could be a therapist, it could be a counselor. There's no limit to who can keep you accountable, as long as they're obviously bought into whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in the future. So, final word of wisdom. I know that it is absolutely not easy at all to break these old habits, but I think people show us over and over again that it is actually possible. So you might be following people on Instagram that you are watching and that you think, wow, they're just doing such an amazing job of doing XYZ, right? And yes, it's because, they have been probably tried again and again until they decided that their intrinsic motivation and their desire for a new life is stronger than what they're currently doing. So I am very, very excited for you, and I hope that you are taking some time to think about those cues and behaviors, and obviously to set these SMART goals. And if you have any questions for me about the rewiring process of your brain, or if you want to share with us what kind of goal you have for yourself in order to build some extra accountability, then please leave a comment down below here in the video and let us know. And that's all I wanted to share with you today. So thank you so much for watching this video. Take care of yourself, and I hope to talk to you really soon.